fire, an icon of destruction, death, fear. Basically all things sinful can be traced back to this one thing. You know, the fun things like arson or crucifixion. Damn near anything linked to fire can likewise be considered evil, except for roast marshmallows. If we're talking about sinful things, those are anything but. Why am I playing such upbeat music while talking about arson? Point is, heat is a dreadful experience. I'm sure you know this, though. Summer was awful this year, but I suppose we could finally sigh in relief. After all, summer is finally over. Really one of those pick your poison situations, isn't it? Well, no matter, since the heat is no longer making me suffer, I feel more than well equipped to be discussing a Skylander who embodies the heat itself, of the, very fitting, fire element. Now, the first Skylanders game really only had one type of Skylander, all of them of equal importance. Just cool monster dudes, dragon things, God himself. The point is, each Skylander held the same value in-game. Unless you buy a bunch of Skylanders of the same element, then, well, no matter what, all of them had the exact same value. Until they busted out the next big thing, in the form of a sequel to Skylanders, which presented actual types of Skylanders. Now, instead of just every Skylander being, you know, a Skylander, now we have cores, which were the same as last game's Skylanders, just being new fun characters for each game to have. These characters are usually hit or miss, since most of them are used for marketing the game way less, which means that they don't need to put as much thought into them. The core Skylanders can range from crazy fun and unique characters to just some bland garbage you barely even play as. Next, we have the reposes. I talked about these last video briefly, so again, these are Skylanders that released in the previous games with a changed position and a single new upgrade. So if you didn't buy them the first time, you can get them again, but they look even cooler. Passed out a little stealth elf over here? No worries, dude. You can get them this time. Or this time. Perhaps now? You should totally get her this time. Or hell, get her this time. Maybe this time? I'm sure you would flourish in getting her this time. Please buy Stealth Elf. But there is one type of Skylander that every game has. No debate required. The most important Skylanders released in every game. The one you can get the most merchandise of. The gimmick characters. They aren't Dino-Rang, but it's hard to be perfection. Gimmick characters are usually the main title characters. You know, Swap Force had the Swap Force, Skylanders Trap Team had the Trap Masters, Skylanders Imaginators had Senseis. The point is, the gimmick characters released in each game are a team or a squad of Skylanders who look cool, have a nice moveset, have a PhD in awesome, and have the ability to access special areas, or mini-games if you're developed by Vicarious Visions. My two main flaws as a person. And the first entry to include gimmick characters, Skylanders Giants, introduced the first gimmick team. Can you guess what they're called? Plumbers? Son of a... The Giants are an elite team of Skylanders. These hulking titans were the first Skylanders who defeated the Archeans, even bigger robots who ruled over and enslaved Skylands. But after they defeated the Archeans, they were sucked away, never to be seen again. Well, at least that would be the case if not for suddenly coming back, after a certain ugly brat reawakened the Archeans and brought them back. These giants are often considered some of the strongest and best Skylanders released, but not to me. Many people point to the slowness being the main problem with these guys, and I mean, kind of. Like, they may be slow, but they're also big. And since I play these games on Nightmare difficulty, yeah, no giants for me, thanks, I'm full. Well, since there is one giant who I enjoy more than others, as in, I can tolerate them the most, and that hero of legend is HotHead, our lovely volcano monster. Truth be told, I didn't originally own HotHead when the games first released. I ended up getting him and Ningini at the dollar store years after it released. That's actually how I got a lot of Skylanders. Lightning Rod, Hex, Series 3 Terrafin, who I keep in box for nostalgia reasons, Zulu, Bull Blast, I even got entire level packs from there. It really shows how worthless these things are in a modern age. No, you're crying. Just you wait. Skylander Supremacy will return soon enough and in full force. But I suppose that isn't very important to this video. Let's talk about HotHead. In my last video when discussing Dino-Rang's backstory, I was only referring to the lore, but there's another world where these have a story in ours. In this case, how did their development go? The most I could find in terms of development for Dino-Rang was some beta screenshots and Jesus, it looks a hell of a lot like Snapshot. Anyhow, this video isn't about Dino-Rang. I dedicated an entirely separate waste of time to that already. Thankfully, I found much more about HotHead's beta, particularly thanks to a leaked alpha of Skylanders Giants, where HotHead was much more red. Not that huge of a difference, but this version was much better documented, especially from the aforementioned leak. His early design seems to represent his soul gem ability much more. Obviously more on that later, but you know. So, HotHead is hot-headed. Guess that's how I got the name. Makes me wonder what Skylanders' birth names are, because there's no way someone named their child fucking Funny Bone. Anyhow. HotHead's a big guy with a small temper, a giant flame golem who, on one day, found out about the first ever pool of magic oil in Skyland's history. Does that mean that magical oil pools became a regular thing in this world? Anyways, so, of course HotHead, being a creature filled with fucking fire, jumped into the pool of oil. Now, can you guess what happened next? Well, the entire island is gone, but hey, HotHead is mostly fine. And he got some sick powers to boot after some of that magical oil fused with him, allowing him to be a giant living fire source. Though he already was before, but now those abilities are enhanced. Because the Giants were the first ever Skylanders, HotHead wasn't really recruited by Eon or anything, since he helped form what the Skylanders are now. Even if he spent a lot of that time banished into some fist, vanishing like some Dream fans' parents. But since he returned into Skylands and later into our world... Wait, why are they in our world? You see, Skylanders from the first game had a canonical reason why they're in our world, but not Giants. Why are they on Earth? Wait, how dim-witted of me. The reason is obvious. The strongest force in the known universe and beyond brought them to Earth. Capitalism! I mean, however which HotHead found his way into my domain, I suppose I should give him some much-needed spotlight. Speaking of, light, gimmick characters, cores, and landfills weren't the only things introduced by Skylanders Giants. They also introduced what developers thought the gimmick was. No fucking way! That's right, once you've placed a Lightcore Skylander on the Portal of Power, they'll light up, alongside the new Giants. These are pretty cool, I guess. It's pretty fun to place a bunch of them on the portal with the lights off, but besides that, it's just some dumb gimmick. But wanna know what is complete fucking bullshit? HotHead had only one of his 3 torches lit up. Why aren't the other ones? Like, honestly, seriously, this is such a weird yet obvious thing they chose to ignore. Oh, Spike, it's just some kid's game that released nearly 10 years ago. Why are you getting so riled up? I don't get mad at a lot of things. Accidentally trip me? That's fine. Don't agree that sourdough bread is the best bread? You're wrong, but that's also fine. break into my house and steal KFC, despite the fact that I literally never bought KFC in my life, so just the misery of where the fuck did the KFC come from? All forgivable. But when a multi-billion-dollar company doesn't pay attention to minute details on a toy of some volcano golem,
you motherfucking bet I'll be upset.
I know 3 lights probably would have been more expensive to produce, but it's just insulting to me that they cheaped out on it in this way. But enough whining about things that aren't relevant to today's subject. Let's look at this lad's figure. All of his sculpted molten details look amazing on him, and with a really nice paint job to boot. I love how they have some transitioning from color to color. Giants had a lot of improvement from the last game's figures. Not as good as what we got later down the line, but still fantastic. As for his pose, most Skylanders adapted to more dynamic poses, but I guess HotHead didn't get the memo. Just a generic pose. I think all Giants have lame poses, to be honest. I mean, come on, these are the Giants. The hulking titans who obtained legend status and lived on as some of the greatest heroes ever known? Nah, just have them stand still with one arm slightly higher than the other arm. Really? When I think of a great pose for a Skylander, I think of them looking like they're in the middle of an epic battle, giving you an idea of why they fight. This just looks like he's showing off. Damn, did he at least receive any variants? Those are 2 letters I cannot respect. To be fair, if every Giant received in-game variants, it would simply be too many. I mean, I can't imagine any interesting variants you can get besides something similar to what Eruptor got in the 3DS starter pack. Since 4 of the Giants had variants, I'm fine with that. Thankfully, he got a chase. This being, oh god, 2 in a row. I swear if Roller Bro has one of these, I'm gonna make an aggressive and loud noise of likes you've never heard. I suppose that's all that has to be said for this figure. Now let us discuss his meta. Unfortunately, I will not be discussing how he played in 3DS versions or any mobile spin-offs, like that would change much. The 3DS games mostly comes down to speedrunning in terms of, who do you choose to play as, so I doubt playing as a Giant is necessary when, Stealth Elf is right there. So, remember the last time I mentioned most primary attacks can be put into groups? Well, allow his bitch ass to be one hell of an exception. I mean, there are other examples, but that's best reserved for another video. I mean, come on. So, the main reason why I like HotHead more than the other Giants is because it's easier to hit large groups of enemies, just like being bigger makes it easier for large groups of enemies to hit you. But I wouldn't worry. This big hunk of whatever he is has lots of HP to compensate. So, what's his first attack? Well, it's a mid-ranged attack that can hit multiple enemies at once. I put it in the beam category because it does constant damage while you hold down the button. If you're some kid who only uses the primary attack and nothing else, this is likewise one of the best characters you can use for that quote-unquote strategy, if you can even call it that. This is such a good attack. Honestly, I think it's too good. Sometimes I just use this attack due to it being that good. As for the second attack, well, time to summon blobs of oil? Hey, I don't make the rules here, I just analyze them. This blob is a very weird projectile, sludging on the floor rather slowly, as opposed to, the exact opposite of that. When this hits an enemy, it doesn't do much damage, but it covers them in such oil, allowing you to burn them with your fiery attacks. Admittedly, this attack is kind of worthless after a while. Either upgrade path you makes this one near useless, and it barely even works as a long-range attack since this one barely does anything. It's slow and, honestly, not fun. And as for the other combat options, oh my. We got his third attack, which can also cause the oil to be set on fire. How devastating! Well, thankfully HotHead is on our side, so we don't have to worry about the pain from that. It will come in use for us in this instance. Anyhow, with the press of whatever button is the top one on your controller, you unleash lava rain onto your enemies. This takes a second to build up, so it may be risky, but this attack attacks all enemies surrounding you. Hell, it even does continuous damage. So, although it may be situational, it is amazing attack to cap this all off. And now you have to decide on what path to choose for your Skylander. Let's look at the Burninator path first. Burninator, that name sounds familiar. Oh well. Anyhow, the first upgrade you receive when picking the Burninator path is titled Eternal Flame. Now, your first attack does increase damage. Hell yes! Remember what I said earlier about the first attack being a little too good? Well, now you can just hold down this button forever, which really makes the other attacks feel less worthwhile. Why use them when you could just use the first attack? It's just that good. This does more harm than otherwise, to be honest. It's just an improvement, but it doesn't really add much to your other combat options. Oh, and now one of your arms has a dragon on it. Call me a narcissist, but this is what made me pick the path initially. The second path, hot oil treatment, just increases the damage of your blob oil attacks. Really, this is my problem with most upgrade paths. They have one that is genuinely cool, but then the other ones just increase your stats. Like, I really want to be extensive with writing about these upgrades, but this is just flat out useless. I am genuinely wasting my time with these. What can I say about this? Nothing. Precisely. God. Moving on. The last upgrade actually does something for a change, which is much appreciated. Now the oil blobs move. Ew. This barely does anything. Sure, it allows you to more easily hit enemies with your oil attacks, but this just outlines the flaws with the oil attacks in the first place. Without the upgrade, it never hits, especially from a distance, and isn't hitting things from a distance, gee, I don't know, the entire point of a long-range attack? But, woohoo, you made this attack less useless after making your flamethrower so overpowered that the other options they just lose all their worth. I can't believe I let myself pick this path. And for what? Cosmetics? I barely even needed to play as HotHead with the alternate upgrade path to tell you that the second one is better. Let's get this over with. See what the Oil Baron path has to offer. The first upgrade, Firestorm, increases the damage and range of your third attack. The Lava Shower. The range difference is actually noticeable, which is nice. The upgrade is tolerable, a welcome addition. But just like the first two attacks from the Burninator path, this is just not an interesting path for an upgrade to have. What do I gain from this? But it does make your first attack less prioritized, which is nice. Oil and Fire is the second upgrade in this path. Now, press attack 2 and add oil to that lava storm. Again, in any other circumstance, that would be a terrible idea. But in waves of baddies, I'll give it a pass. Now, is this upgrade useful? Of course. Adds to the risk-reward factor of HotHead as a character. Since you are so big and easy to hit, you have to choose to either dodge attacks or take some time and make a devastating attack yourself. This is what I love about HotHead, and it's great we get an upgrade to expand upon it. And even better, the third upgrade path expands upon it even further. As if HotHead wasn't devastating and, quite frankly, crazy enough, his third and final upgrade for the path, Hot with a Chance of Meteors, gives him the ability to summon a fucking meteor. Blasphemy. Now, if you hold your third attack for an extended amount of time, you summon a meteor that can just so casually be hurled at enemies, doing crazy amounts of damage. This has to be my favorite of his upgrades. I have gotten very efficient use out of this so far. And with the conclusion of our upgrades, we can now end the video with the Soul Gem. And what is his soul gem? Can you transform into a motorcycle? Didn't think so. Seems as though HotHead is superior. This is flashy and all, but the speed is more or less the same. The damage it does to enemies isn't that good of a trade-off. It just makes it easier for enemies to hit you. Overall, rubbish soul gem for an otherwise amazing character. With a great moveset, alright design, and being one of the few fire elements I regularly play as, I certainly recommend him if you are like me and not a fan of the other giants. He is moderately cheap, only being slightly more expensive than Dino-Rang. This is my second video now, so I'm slightly better at doing this, and of course, there will be videos released after this one. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out my other video, as well as the usual garbage everyone tells you to do, like subscribing or commenting, but you don't have to do either. I'll just be vastly disappointed in you if you choose not to. Kidding, of course, you can use your account however you want. There's just certain better ways to do so. I suppose that's all to be said. Later. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.